They don't pay us to think. They pay us to know. We know we can beat them. There's no excuses why we shouldn't. Win the game, period. W is on 3, man. Let's go. W on 3. 1, 2, 3. W.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report Live. Week 9 in the books, and still kind of on a little bit of a high from that Seattle Seahawks win, and I can't lie. It's restored hope in me for this season. I sat on this very seat at this same exact time on this very same program a week ago and pronounced the season dead. And I didn't think anything of it. Everything that I said, I meant when I said it then. I still can't believe we went to Seattle and won. I don't know how that happened. I watched that game at least 4 times, and I never watched games over that many times. I still am at a loss, and I still can't believe we won that game. And even when I go back and watch and all the things that transpired to lead up to us winning that game, it's still hard for me to fathom that we were able to come out on top. The fact that we're at 500 right now, and I told you what we really needed to do was get through the next 4 games at 5-5. And that included the Dallas game and the Seattle game. And right now we're on pace for 5-5. And we can find a way to navigate through this, because this is, to me, the last tough stretch of football we got this season. If we can find a way to get through these next 2 games with a split, and really, I'm greedy. I want both of them. To be honest with you, I think we're good enough to go and get both of these games. But look, it's one at a time. And I told you I'm not one to look too far into the future. I'm not a guy that is looking at everything from a macro approach. I'm a micro guy. I have tunnel vision. I only see what's right in front of me. And the next game up is Minnesota. But before we can talk about the Minnesota Vikings, we must first put this Week 9 contest, one that was improbable, one that seemed impossible, behind us and move on. Put that bow on it and move on to Minnesota. And we got to protect home. We haven't been as good as we need to be at home. And to be honest with you, we don't have any more leeway for losses at home. If we want to make the postseason, we've been outstanding on the road. Really, we have. We've been better on the road than we have been at home. And really, the mark is the exact same. We're 2-2 both on the road and at home. But we shouldn't be 2-2 both at home and on the road at this juncture of the season. We should have a winning record at home. And it's fine to be 2-2 on the road, because what you're looking for on the road is a split. I've already told you the goal every season should be starting out 6-2 at home, 4-4 on the road. That's just the baseline. That's just the beginning. For any team, that's the goal. To get to 10 wins, 6-2 at home, 4-4 on the road, and voila, you got 10 wins. You're 10-6. Now, obviously, you should be shooting for higher than that, but that's the baseline. That's the floor. That's the bottom, okay? That's as low as it gets. If I'm starting out and I'm talking to my team, 10-6, 6-2 at home, 4-4 on the road. That's how you get to 10-6. The easiest way to get to 10-6 in this league. It'd be even better if you could go 8-0 at home, and then that would leave you even more room for error on the road. But bottom line is, we got to take care of home. We got to take better care of home. We've already lost 2 division games at home. So now you put yourself in a position where you don't have much more room for error. You don't have a big margin of error at home. So we got to start taking care of the crib. We got to be better stewards of our house. And it starts on Sunday versus the Minnesota Vikings. But before we get to the Vikings, like I said, want to put a bow, a nice, big, pretty, Christmas-colored bow on that Week 9 contest versus the Seattle Seahawks. And the way that we're going to start out to do that is by jumping into our 7-on-7 this week. And I think this week I want to start with the defense. They're the stars of the show this week. Without the defense, there is no win. There is no 4-4. There is no season. We're done. We're dead. Like I had pronounced this last week. So I think it's only right, it's only fitting that we start off our 7-on-7 this week with the defense and talk about what they were able to get done and how they were able to get it done. And again, I am so blown away by the effort that these guys showed. Big shout out to Jay Gruden, Greg Minuski, and the entire staff for the effort that they got these guys to put forth on the football field. I mean, there were guys that we signed last week, guys that we signed this week. Arthur Jones, we signed him on Saturday. Guy hadn't played football in over a year on an NFL roster, and this man played like 30-some-odd snaps before he got hurt. I mean, we're just sticking bodies out there, man, and these guys competed and came back with a dub. I mean, unreal. Let's start with the defense. 7-on-7. Here we go. Start with number 7, and we're going to run through these quickly today. And we'll take comments after we kind of get through all of the 7-on-7s on each side of the ball. We're going to start with number 7, third down D in the final drive. Now, third down defense was an Achilles heel of ours last year. We've been better this season, but of late we were struggling again on third downs. If you remember the Cowboys game, we couldn't get off the field on third downs to save our life against the Cowboys, which was part of the reason we lost that football game at home. Again, I knew we were going to lose that game just because of how banged up we were. We assumed the same thing. And it's kind of frustrating now looking back at that Cowboys loss because everything was there for the taking in that game. And if we could have just had a semblance of what we had defensively in this game, in that game, we could have come away with a victory there, but the big difference is the Seattle Seahawks can't run the football as effectively as the Dallas Cowboys can, and so we were able to stop their run game for the most part, and we weren't able to do that against Dallas, but the Seattle Seahawks were 5 of 14 on third downs, and they started the game out 1 of 8. They struggled mightily early. And it wasn't until the second half and really into the fourth quarter where you could tell the defense was starting to wear down a little bit because the offense wasn't sustaining itself. And Russell Wilson started to gain a little bit of momentum, and the offense started to move the football, and they started to convert on third downs. But they started out the game 1 of 8. Now, they would finish the game up 4 of 6 on third downs, which made that average look a little bit better at 5 of 14. But 1 of 8 to start the game off. We were tremendous on third downs, and we made the plays when we had to make the plays. And speaking of which, the final drive. How many times last year were we in situations like this and we weren't able to close the deal? Last year, this was a game that we would have given up a field goal to tie the game up. And you could argue that Seattle botched the end of the game execution because after that big catch and run by Paul Richardson down to the Redskins 38-yard line. There was 18 seconds left. All they had to do was run up and spike the football. Instead, they tried to get cute because we weren't set. And they tried to run a play, and Russell Wilson ended up getting sacked. Had they just spiked the football there with I think it would have been about 18 seconds had they just spiked the ball, they could have conceivably run another play over the middle of the field if they wanted to, but preferably towards the sidelines. But hell, over the middle if they wanted to, and still got up, just like they did right before the half, and still got up on the ball, spiked it with about 3 or 4 seconds left, and sent out Blair Walsh. Now, obviously, he was 0 of 3 and really shaky at that point in the game, but you would have had to have tried it. But they decided to try to run out and get a playoff because we weren't set, and they ended up getting Russell Wilson ended up getting sacked, and the whole end of the game unfolded the way that it did. But kudos to the Redskins defensively for finding a way to get it. It wasn't the prettiest final drive. It would have been a lot better if they would have went 4 and out and the Redskins ended that game taking knees. That would have felt a lot better. It would have been a lot less stressful on us as fans, but we'll take it any way we can get it. And the fact that they had to throw a Hail Mary from damn near midfield, you feel good about that. Instead of attempting a field goal to tie the game up and having to hold your breath that way, or them being a little bit closer and the Hail Mary being a little bit more achievable. So shout out to the defense for getting us to the point where we could win the football game and then closing the show at the very end on that final drive. Number 6, turnovers and defending short fields. Our defense was outstanding in this game. That's an understatement. But they created turnovers in this game, something that I've talked about all season long that we need to do more of. We don't create enough turnovers. We don't create enough short fields for the offense. Well, they did that in this game. You know, they stopped a couple of Seahawk drives dead in their tracks with turnovers. And they were moving the football on both of those drives. I mean, both of those drives, I don't know if they were going to result in points or not, but both of those drives were in Redskins territory at the time of the interceptions. And so the Seahawks were on the move on both of those drives, and the defense was able to come up with some huge plays. First, Kendall Fuller with the pick on the slant, where he was able to undercut the Angry Bird, Doug Baldwin, get to the football first and win and pick it off. And then, of course, Will Compton with the pick in the third quarter as the Seahawks were trying to build a little bit of momentum and get some points there. So the turnovers were huge in this game. And there were opportunities for more, you know, that we didn't get. But nonetheless, turnovers were huge in this game. Redskins, for once, finally win the turnover battle. Doesn't seem like we win it often enough. It was 2-1 in this game, but those 2 turnovers that the Redskins created were huge, momentous turnovers that allowed the Redskins to keep the Seattle Seahawks from at least attempting field goals. At some point, you would have to think Blair Walsh was going to make one. So to take those opportunities off the board by picking the football off, huge plays in the game for the Redskins. And defending short fields, they had to defend quite a few short fields throughout the game, especially in the first half. Seattle had excellent field position. Remember, we had a turnover early in the game with the Samaje Perine, Kirk Cousins fumbled exchange on the handoff that the Seahawks were able to recover. That was right about the 45-yard line or so as we were trying to start to mount a drive. And so the defense had to come out and get a stop, and they did get a stop. It was huge, and they forced the Seahawks to punt, and that punt ended up going into the end zone, if I'm not mistaken. If it didn't, that was the one that ended up, they downed it at the 6, I believe, and that's when they ended up getting the safety. But in any event, that was huge to be able to come on the field and not give up a field goal nor a touchdown in that situation. That's massive. And there were ample opportunities for them to score in that first half. They had great field position throughout the day. Really, for the vast majority of the day, this defense was asked to come on the field and defend shorter fields. The Seahawks, I'd venture to say, and I can't confirm nor deny this, but just off of recollection, I'd tell you that their starting field position was probably north of the 30-yard line throughout this game. They had a ton of great field position that they squandered because the defense was able to find ways to get them off the field on third downs and force 3 and outs. And that was critical in this game because the fact that they weren't able to move the football and pick up first downs, tire out our defense, and allow for something to happen, whether it be defensive breakdowns. We only had one in this game, really, and that was the touchdown to Doug Baldwin late in the game, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But there weren't many defensive breakdowns. There weren't many defensive penalties by the Redskins in this game. We were pretty much clean, and so you lessen the likelihood of something happening that way. Russell Wilson is a dangerous quarterback. You lessen the likelihood of him doing something special, running around, extending a play, kind of like Carson Wentz has done to us this season, and allowing somebody to uncover because he's running around for 6 seconds. You minimize the opportunities for that to happen when you get off the field, and they did that in this game, and that was huge, huge for this defense. Unsung heroes is number 5 on the list. we had guys step up in this game that we couldn't have imagined we're going to step up to the plate and knock it out of the park. I mean, you're talking about guys like Anthony Lanier. You're talking about guys like D'Angelo Hall, who played in his first game of the season. Lanier, his second game of the season. And Will Compton stepped up for us. Comp was huge in his, second start due to the Mason Foster injury. I mean, these guys were monumental in this victory. Comp with the pick. D'Angelo Hall saving the game with that play at the end. Not to mention him fielding punts and being a really good member of that secondary. He did have a defensive breakdown. Let's touch on that real quick. On that touchdown that we gave up to Doug Baldwin to allow the Seahawks to take the lead 14-10. Josh Norman got beat, and it was man-to-man. Josh Norman got beat off the line of scrimmage. But D'Angelo Hall was the safety on the opposite side of the field, and there was no action on that side, and he allowed his eyes to kind of get him in trouble. He started following the quarterback and kind of running to the opposite side of the field instead of staying at home where he belonged. Doug Baldwin ran right into his area of the field, and he fell asleep behind the wheel. And that's why Josh Norman was so upset, because he was able to be aggressive at the line of scrimmage, knowing he had help, safety help over the top. And D'Angelo Hall fell asleep because, again, there was no action on his side of the field. No tight end, no receivers, no action whatsoever on his side of the field. And so they did run a tight end across to the other side of the field, and his eyes got him into trouble. He watched that tight end and kind of followed that tight end, even though that tight end was already being covered and he had no business trailing that tight end on that play. He did so, allowing Doug Baldwin to come all the way across from the other side of the field and be wide open in that vacated space by D'Angelo Hall. Again, Josh Norman was beat right off the snap. Great swim move and swim technique, up and under technique by Doug Baldwin on that play to get open initially off the snap. That being said, there should have been help over the top. D'Angelo Hall should have been there, and he wasn't, but he still was outstanding in the game. And if not for his play at the very end in the end zone on the Hail Mary, that's a touchdown. And so he was huge. And then obviously guys like Lanier, Arthur Jones, those guys put in work up front, man. Stacy McGee, all of those guys along that defensive line, they got pressure. Even though they weren't able to catch Russell Wilson, Terrell McClain did, clipped his ankles on that final sack of the game. That was huge. The whole entire defensive line and outside linebackers were unsung heroes, but Anthony Lanier, I thought, did a really good job of filling in for no Matt Illy and no rookie. Of course, I don't think he's coming back this season, but you never know. I think they put him on season-ending IR. I think his season is done. Of course, I'm talking about our rookie, Jonathan Allen. And so he was basically trying to fill some huge shoes with no Ioannidis and no Allen down there. I thought Anthony Lanier was outstanding in this game. So unsung hero stepping up, making some plays for this Redskins defense as we go to number 4. Consistent pressure. So I just talked about the whole entire defensive line. I talked about the outside linebackers. Let's talk about them a little bit more, because it was their consistent pressure that really flustered Russell Wilson in this game. He was never comfortable at all in this game. And the credit must be given where it is deserved. And that defensive line and those outside linebackers were outstanding in this game. They made Russell Wilson uncomfortable all day long. He was running around, and even though he was able to outflank our linebackers and our defensive linemen for much of the day, he did have 10 rushes or something of that sort for like 70-something yards. Even though he was able to outflank them and get to the outside and pick up yards on a consistent basis throughout the day, they made him have to run. You know, they didn't allow him to run around in the backfield and extend plays for 5-6 seconds and allow somebody to uncover so that he could throw it to him for a big gain. That wasn't going on. And he didn't have a lot of time to sit back in the pocket and just chill. And I'm not sold that we're going to get consistent pressure with 4-man fronts. I can't tell you how many times Preston Smith, how many times Ryan Kerrigan, and Junior Gillette almost got to the quarterback. It was their pressure, too, off the edge. It was those guys beating tackles off the edge, flushing Russell Wilson out of the pocket. It was Stacy McGee, Terrell McClain, Anthony Lanier, bull rush in the pocket and beating guys off the snap. Stacy McGee won at least 2 or 3 times and chased Russell Wilson. Never was going to catch him, obviously, but the fact that that immediate pressure came, Russell didn't have a chance to survey the field and identify an open target. It was excellent pressure all day long on Russell Wilson. And despite only getting him down twice, getting 2 sacks on the game, it was the consistent pressure of the D-line and the outside linebackers that really flustered Russell Wilson, forced him into 2 interceptions, possibly should have been 3 or 4, and never really allowed him to get into a rhythm throwing the football. I mean, you're talking about a guy that last week shredded the Houston Texans to the tune of over 300 yards and 41 points up on the scoreboard. He barely had over 50% completion percentage in this game, and he threw it 45 times. So that's a testament to the secondary, but more importantly, the pressure up front applied by the Redskins. And a lot of it came without the Redskins even blitzing. We did blitz a couple of times throughout the game, but a lot of it came with just 4-man pressures, and that's impressive. I was really pleased with the pressure throughout the day on Russell Wilson. As we get to number 3, the J-No effect. I remember when we lost him at the first half of the Kansas City game, and after we lost that game, one of the Redskin faithful asked me, do you think there is a huge difference in this defense without J-No? And I said, nah, we're going to miss him, obviously. He's one of the best corners in the league, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. Well, I was wrong, and I told you I was wrong probably like 2 weeks later when I realized that Greg Minuski wasn't confident in the secondary's ability to man up across the board without J-No in the lineup. He's the missing link. When J-No's on the field, he's not afraid to run any coverage, any blitz, any look. He's not afraid to do anything when J-No's on the field. When J-No is off the field, he's a little bit more timid in his play calling in terms of being aggressive. When it's vitamin B and Q-bar, he's like, I don't know if I want to run. You know, and Dunny seems to be extremely confident. Q-bar seems to be really confident, willing to step in anybody's face and man them up at the line of scrimmage and play bump and run. But I think he's a lot more comfortable as a play caller when he knows I got Josh Norman on the football field. And you saw that in this game. They mixed up the coverages. They were able to come with some blitzes. They were a lot more aggressive in this game. We saw how passive this team was against, well, they were really aggressive against Philadelphia and with no Josh Norman in that particular game. But we got beat a bunch in that game too, down the field with no Josh Norman. So it changes, the dynamic of this defense changes, and the attitude of this defense changes with J-No in the lineup. I mean, that 3rd and 1 stop of Thomas Rawls where he tried to stiff arm and he knocked his arm down and then tried to pull his arm out of the socket as he yanked him down for no gain and forced a punt. That's the attitude that Josh Norman brings to this defense that we lack when he's not in the lineup. We're a different defensive group when he's out on the field. And it speaks volumes just to how well we play when he's on the field versus how we play when he's not on the field. And the J-No effect is real. And we're paying him a ton of money, and he's worth every single penny, whether he's forcing a fumble, recovering a fumble, making a critical tackle, making a huge pass breakup, or just making a quarterback turn down a receiver because he's on that side of the field. Whatever the case may be, Josh Norman has been huge for this defense, and the J-No effect is real. As we get to number 2, what can Brown do for you? We talked all day on Sunday after the game about how effective Zach Brown has not only been in that particular game, but this season. He's been outstanding, and I told you he brings an element that this team has lacked defensively for quite some time, since the days of Sean Taylor and LeVar Arrington and those guys. We haven't had this kind of speed defensively since those days. DJ Swearinger brings a little bit of speed. Even though he's not the fastest guy in the world, he does give us some speed. Nick Nasty brings a ton of speed when he's on the football field, and so does Zach Brown. And the front seven has notoriously been slow and unathletic for this Redskins team for quite some time. Again, you'd have to go back to LeVar Arrington if you're looking for real deal, top-tier NFL linebacker speed in the front seven for this Redskins defense. You got to go all the way back to the LeVar Arrington days to find a guy that can run the way that Zach Brown can in the front seven for this defense. And it showed in this game because the only guy in our front seven that was capable of hawking down Russell Wilson, and he's faster than Russell Wilson, is Zach Brown. Everybody else, Russell Wilson was beating them to the edge, beating them to the sidelines, picking up an extra 2 or 3 yards. He was beating guys, outflanking and out-leveraging guys that were supposed to be keeping contained. They couldn't do it against Russell Wilson. The only guy that could eat up Russell Wilson's angle and force him out of bounds was Zach Brown. He was outstanding in this game. He's been outstanding for us all season long. And like I said, after the game was over, we have to re-sign Zach Brown. That's one of the top priorities in the offseason. And don't think that other teams around the league aren't taking notice as to what he's doing. He's going to command some money out on the free agent market. It's our job to not even let him get to free agency. It's our job to lock this guy up as soon as possible because he's going to get paid this offseason. He took a one-year deal to bet on himself so that he could cash in the 2018 offseason. He's going to cash in, and I hope we're the ones doing the spending when it comes to Zach Brown because he adds an element to this defense that we've lacked, and we can't afford to let this guy walk away. There aren't a ton of linebackers in this league with the type of speed that Zach Brown possesses. And yeah, he makes mistakes every single week. That touchdown to Luke Wilson that cut the lead from 2 to 10 to 8, that was Zach Brown. You saw him go out there and try to make the tackle at the end. That was his man. That's why he was so wide open. That was a blown coverage. I don't give a damn. Okay, there's one of those from Zach Brown just about every week. Every week you can count on him blowing a coverage. Remember the Rams game when Gerald Everett was wide open on that 69-yard play that set up the Rams' first touchdown of the game when we looked like we were about to blow the Rams out? Yeah, that was Zach Brown's man. But remember, he ran him down and caught him. There's one of these just about every week with Zach Brown, but I will take one of those blown coverages for the amount of plays that he makes throughout the game. He leads our team in tackles. He leads the NFC in tackles for a reason because the man is all over the field. I don't think there's been a game this season he hasn't had double-digit tackles. He's been a man amongst boys, and his athleticism brings something to the field that when he is on the field changes the game defensively for this Redskins unit. We got to have him. What can Brown do for you? Provide this defense with speed, the likes of which we haven't seen since the mid-2000s. He's a difference maker on defense. Glad we were able to go get him. We got to find a way to keep him. He was outstanding in this game yet again. Finally, number one on the defensive 7-on-7, if duplicated, this is a playoff defense. The defense we saw on Sunday, the defense we saw against the Raiders in week 3, the defense we saw in the first half of the Kansas City game. If this defense is able to duplicate the performance that they put forth in week 9 versus Seattle, in week 3 versus Oakland, in the first half versus Kansas City, for much of the first half, specifically the first quarter versus Kansas City, this is a playoff caliber defense. It's a playoff caliber football team. Because I look around the league and no, we don't have dynamic edge rushers. We're not creating turnovers at an alarming rate. But I look around the league and I don't see many teams playing the caliber of defense that we played on Sunday. I don't see many teams doing that. I could count off about 4 or 5 maybe. But if we're playing like that, they're not 10 defenses. I don't even think there are 7 defenses playing better football than what you saw on Sunday in Seattle. Mind you, they scored 41 the week previous. They did that. Now, I'm not saying Seattle's the greatest offense since sliced bread. I'm not saying that they're one of the most high-octane offenses in the league, but they can score. When they get it going, they're dangerous. When Russell Wilson is moving around and they're protecting him and guys are getting vertical, they're a dangerous team. And there was none of that in this game because this defense was that good in this football game. And if they can play that way moving forward, not only are we going to have a chance to win every single game from here on out, we're going to win a bunch of them. Because we gave up 14 points. Granted, there were 3 missed field goals. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. Yes, we got help. Plenty of help. And we thank the Seattle Seahawks for that because we needed every bit of help they gave us. We needed it. We needed every single penalty, every single missed field goal, every single turnover, every piece of help that they wanted to give. We were accepting it in this game because we needed it. So we didn't do this on our own. We got help. But that being said, the defense was outstanding in this game. And if they can play that way, they defended a ton of short fields, forced punts, got off the field on 3rd downs, got to Russell Wilson a ton. This is a playoff caliber defense. Can they consistently keep that up? Can they stay healthy? I don't know. But we've seen this defense do this before this season. The key is consistency. Can they do it on a week in, week out basis? We're going to need them to because we don't know when we're going to get healthy offensively. We don't know when that's going to happen. So we're going to need them to step up and make plays. Can they continue to do this? We'll see. But as a side note for the defensive 7-on-7, Seattle was gracious in this game, and we must give thanks to the Seattle Seahawks. Any Seahawk fans out there, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys allowing us to steal one from you and come back to the DMV with a victory. Seattle was very gracious. 16 penalties for 138 yards, and we needed every single one of those penalties. Believe you me. They stalled a number of their own drives that they had going. They wasted a number of great starting field positions of their own with their own penalties by their own self. We just aided them after they decided to do damage. We just said, okay, thanks. We'll take it from here. But there were a number of times, there was a possession where they were 1st and 10 from the Redskins 25. And then they proceeded to have an offensive pass interference and a holding penalty. And next thing you know, it's 2nd and 30 from the Redskins 45. And then they had to settle for a Blair Walsh 49-yard field goal that he ended up missing. We didn't do that. They did that. Appreciate it. So, 3 missed field goals. You can't make this stuff up. 1 made field goal since this game to overtime. 2 made field goals, we lose this game. Now, again, the dynamics of the game change if he makes those field goals in the course of the game. Then maybe the Redskins handle the game differently. Maybe they're a lot less conservative offensively because they're not leading 10-2. Maybe they're a little bit more aggressive. I don't know. Maybe that forces some mistakes. I don't know. I just know how to do math. And we won the game 17-14. And 1 field goal is worth 3 points. 3 points would have tied this game. 6 points, which a second field goal made, would have made it 6 points. 6 points would have gave them a 20-17 win. So we needed every one of those missed field goals. And then the 2 turnovers, appreciate it, man. They were on the move on both of those possessions. And the Redskins, the Fuller play was outstanding. The comp play, that was just a great play by Anthony Lanier to get in the face of Russell Wilson, to take that offensive lineman, push him all the way back, and not allow him to see what the hell was going on. And then force Russell to throw the football kind of blindly, not seeing Will Compton out of his peripheral, and boom, easy pick. So we'll take it. We will take it. Let's get to some of your comments, and then we'll get to the offensive 7-on-7 before moving on to the bow and go. FBG Tony says, we beating the Vikes. Their defense is yikes, but so is the offense, and I'm not in a bad way for us, LOL. And not in a bad way for us, he says, LOL. We're going to get to that in a second. Caden Boyer says, my Vikings are going to tear your team apart. We'll see about that. SW Mike says, how do you think the fellas knew how to win in that atmosphere? It's a different locker room, man. The team last year, there's no way they go in there as banged up as we were. There's no way the team last year or the team before that goes in there and finds a way to get it done. It's a different locker room, and credit the coaching staff for getting the guys that were healthy enough to play prepared to go in a hostile environment and win. I mean, for all of the people that don't love Jay Gruden, how can you not love him having this team prepared to play and go get a win on the road in Seattle? I can't state that enough. Boba Sis says, I got us winning the next 3 coming, but let's focus on Minnesota first. It's amazing what one win can do for the psyche of a fan base and a team. I mean, last week, I can't speak for any of you guys, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys were down after the Dallas loss. I was, and looking at the status of this team and the injury report, I had little to no hope that this team could rally and win anything like they did on Sunday. And I didn't have prospects for the future versus Minnesota or at New Orleans the week after. I'm like, our season's done. We're going to be 3-7 after this 4-game stretch. We lose to Dallas. You're going to lose to Seattle. That's going to drop you to 3-5. You're going to come home, lose to Minnesota. You're going to be 3-6. And then you're going to lose to New Orleans. You're going to be 3-7. Your season's going to be done, dead in the water. And what a difference a week makes. You know, you go to Seattle, get an improbable victory. You're now back to 500, and now all of a sudden we're talking crazy about winning the next 3. I mean, it's crazy what one win can do to the psyche of a fan base. But I don't disagree with you. I don't think you're wrong. But again, I'm like you said at the end of that statement, and I've already said at the top of the show, I've got tunnel vision. Okay, it's Minnesota for me and nothing else. And so that's the team at hand. We've got to protect home. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Matthew123 says, proud of the boys. Did you see the performances from Comp and Hall coming? No, and I've talked about that already. Unsung heroes. That's exactly why they were unsung heroes, because you're not unsung if we expect that from you. You know, we expect Zach Brown to play well week in and week out because he's shown us the ability to play well week in and week out. We expect DJ Swearinger to play well. So when he doesn't play well against Philadelphia, we're surprised because week in and week out, he's been good most weeks for us. And so that's not a surprise to us that he played well against Seattle. Josh Norman, we expect him when he's on the field to play great football for us. We expect that. We hold him to a higher standard than most because we expect greatness from Jano. We didn't expect anything from Comp. And I actually... when Will Compton's in the game, I expect him to be a solid, quality contributor to this defense. I didn't have a problem. A lot of you had problems with him starting. I didn't have a problem with him starting. I just wanted to upgrade the position. Now, if that meant he needed to sit down so that we could get faster on defense, so be it. But I didn't have a problem with him playing because he was smart enough, he knew where to be, and he was another coach on the field. So I didn't have a problem with him. Comp's limitation is lack of foot speed. And so I knew that this guy could play the game and play it the right way, but I still didn't see him contributing in the fashion that he did in this game. And D Hall, there were no expectations whatsoever. Remember, he's still making the transition from corner to safety. All right, he was 3 games into that transition before he got injured. So I really didn't know what to expect from him, and he was outstanding. He was outstanding, and so no. Couldn't have foresaw that coming in this game. John Perez says, how do you beat a Vikings team that is so well coached and disciplined? We'll talk about that. It's a great question. John Saluter says, where do you see D-Hall going forward? Starting or backup? I honestly want Nick Nasty if he's healthy. Hashtag TTR. That's a great question, John. I pondered this myself yesterday as I sat down and watched the game again, and I'm like, Nick Nasty comes back. I want D-Hall on the field. There going to have to be some packages where we can still get everybody on the field. and whether that means you take a linebacker off the field to put another defensive back on the field. I don't know what it is you do there. Maybe that allows you to bring DJ Swearinger up around the line of scrimmage and be a little aggressive around the line of scrimmage and have D. Hall and Nick Nasty back playing a little bit further away from the line of scrimmage. But, I mean, if put in a pinch, you ask me which one, I prefer Nick Nasty myself because of his range and his ability to affect receivers over the middle of the field, and his range to get from sideline to sideline scares teams, and he's got ball skills too. So I prefer Nick Nasty out there as well, but I feel like D. Hall gives us some depth that we've lacked severely at the safety position. We haven't been this comfortable and confident in our safety position in quite some time. So it feels good to have that kind of problem. Like, that's a great problem to have. For the first time in a long time, we can actually say, hey, there's a guy that probably won't start the game that we have no problem starting if we need to at the safety position. When's the last time we've been able to say that? That feels really good, that if somebody goes down to the safety position, there's someone else that can come in the game and there won't be a stark drop-off. And so it's a great problem to have, but I'm with you, John. If Nick Nasty's healthy, I want him in the game. John Perez says, should Xavier Rhodes be Defensive Player of the Year? He hasn't allowed a touchdown in coverage all season. He's been outstanding, man. And he's another one of these corners, much like Dick Sherman. You pick your spots. You don't attack this guy. And we don't have a grade A top choice wide receiver that you throw the football to against him. So unless you feel like you've got great one-on-one situation and you got a go ball and you got a double move and he bites on it, I don't know if you want to really go after him very often. So we'll see what they decide to do with him. He's a dangerous corner, though. Des got game 421 says, do you see Brian Quick getting more playing time over Terrell Pryor after a solid performance against Seattle? We're going to get into that when we talk about the 7-on-7. That's a really good question, Des. Dominic Garland says, good teams find a way to win. Hashtag HTTR. You're right. And that's why I thought Seattle was going to find a way to win that game and not us, because I wasn't convinced that we knew how to find a way to get a win there. And I told you 2 or 3 weeks ago, the late game narrative with this team is starting to change. And I think I said that after the I guess it was the San Francisco game, maybe. I said the late game narrative is starting to change, meaning that I'm starting to have confidence in the offense's ability to score in late game situations. But more importantly, I feel like if we have to put our defense on the field at the end of a game, I'm starting to become more confident that they can get the job done. It's never going to be pretty because we don't have a closer as a pass rusher. In order to stop teams from moving the football down the field on you in a 2-minute situation, the reason why we're so bad in the last 2 minutes of the half and of the game, we're the worst in the league. If you didn't know that, we've given up the most points of any team in the league in the last 2 minutes of the first half and the last 2 minutes of the game, because we don't have a closer. We don't have that one guy off the edge that can get to the quarterback and affect the game. So we're always going to make it a lot more interesting than we need to in those types of situations, because you don't want to blitz at the end of games and be over aggressive, because if you get beat, you're going to give up something big, and that's not what you're looking to do at the end of the game. Nothing cheap, nothing deep at the end of the game. You want to keep everything in front of you. So you're going to get generally bland 4-man rushes at the end of ball games. And so you're hoping one of your guys can win. We don't have a guy that consistently wins one-on-one matchups. So that being the case, the end of the game situations are going to come down to us having to either have the other team run out of time or us finding a way to get a turnover or a stop. And I'm starting to become more confident that we can do that. But good teams find a way to win. We found a way to win. We didn't against Kansas City. We did here. We're hoping that this becomes a trend, that we find ways to win games moving forward. John Perez says, are Swearinger and Norman going to take turns guarding Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen? We'll talk about that a little bit later on too. SW Mike says, after that last touchdown, it was 14-10. I thought it was over after that. But that boy Doc, glad you're not wearing black. You and me both, Mike. You and me both. I was so happy to not have to don the all black today. I thought it was over too at 14-10. I told you that during the R3. I thought we were dead. We were dead in the water. And even though I'm starting to gain confidence that we can move the football late in games, that game just didn't seem like the type of game that we hadn't scored since the first possession of the third quarter. Are you are aware of that? Like, to think that all of a sudden now we were going to do something we hadn't done since the first possession of the third quarter, it didn't seem like it was going to happen. At 14-10, I said, damn, good game, fellas. You guys fought to the end. You made this thing a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Proud of y'all for competing the way that y'all did. And they said, hey, we're not dead yet, man. Give us a chance. And so I'm glad we're not wearing black either. But I, like you, did not think we were going to win the game once they took the lead 14-10. And shout out to Jimmy Graham for dropping that 2-point conversion to not allow the game to be 16-10, because we didn't need that extra pressure put on Nick Rose to have to kick the extra point to give us the lead at 17-16. And I didn't want the Seahawks to have a chance to kick a field goal to give them the win at 19-17. I much preferred that if they were going to go down the field and score, it was going to be for a field goal to just tie the game and send it to overtime. So shout out to Jimmy Graham for letting the football go through his hands on that 2-point conversion as well. Cole Hunt says, I swear we have the hardest schedule in the league. It's going to soften up, man. I guarantee you. We got the Giants twice, which, again, is still family business, but the Giants, I've heard rumors of them potentially benching Eli Manning and allowing Geno Smith to start. I mean, look, it's that much turmoil going on with the Giants, so we got them twice. Yeah, we got Dallas once more, but I think we can go to Dallas and win. But, again, health is going to be a big story there. And then is Zeke Elliott playing? He may get suspended, and we may not see him the second time. Look, I don't want him to get suspended, but I'm not against him being suspended when we see him for the second game. So I'll take anything I can get at this point. Beggars can't be choosers. I'll take whatever I can get. But after those, I mean, you look at the schedule. You got the Chargers in in Los Angeles, excuse me. You got the Broncos at home. You got the Cardinals at home. They're winnable games at the back end of this schedule. Okay? I'm not saying. I'm just saying. We got some games that we can win, but that's too far down the line. You know, Minnesota at home is all I care about. So, John Perez says, will we finally get Ty and Seki back and possibly Trent and Sheriff? I don't know about Trent. I'm expecting Sheriff back, and word on the street is Seki should be back at practice this week. Excuse me, with that core muscle injury. But again, you never know with a core muscle injury. Those things are hard to predict. Just like the stinger that Sean Laval has, those are hard to predict because they're just waiting for him to get feeling back in his the neck and the side of the body that the stinger occurred. It could take him a week to heal up from that. It could take him 5 weeks. It could take him the rest of the season. It could be to the off season. You know, these stingers, you just never know. So remember, Corey Lichtensteiger had a stinger that lasted like 14 weeks at one point. We were waiting for Corey Lichtensteiger forever to come back. So you just never know with those stingers. But I'm here to tell you, Ari Kwanjo is playing his ass off. Speaking of which, let's get to the offensive 7-on-7, shall we? And let's start with number 7. Perine looked good before the fumble. I know a lot of us have been down on Samaje Perine, and I got to stop living in the past because I'm upset that the Redskins didn't take some of the other backs that were on the board, mainly Alvin Kamara. I really wanted him, and watching him do what he's doing in New Orleans, and we'll see him up close and personal in a couple of weeks, pisses me off. Looking at Marlon Mack out in Indy and what he's doing for the Colts pisses me off because those were two guys high on my radar that I wanted this team to draft, and instead we took Samaje Perine. But Samaje Perine isn't trash, and I know a lot of you are down on him. Don't be down on Samaje Perine. He's just got to stop doing dumb stuff. And if he can stop with the mistakes, and it's not uncommon for a rookie to make rookie mistakes. He made a really bad mistake against Kansas City on a drive that we were moving the football looking for points. And like I told you, on that night, I didn't really feel like the Chiefs stopped us We stopped ourselves on offense that night. We just didn't have the ball a ton because the Chiefs dominated time of possession. But he had that drop toss that killed the drive in Kansas City. And I felt like, okay, that's going to turn off a lot of fans. It turned me off that night. I was really disappointed. He had the fumble against the Raiders in week 3. That was the first time he really effed up. And we were like, okay, you know, that pissed us off. Then he had the fumble the next week on the muff toss that we recovered, but it killed the drive. Then we were fed up at that point. Go sit his ass down. And then in the game early against Seattle, you have the exchange between him and Kirk. Kirk bobbles the snap. And so it's all in a rhythm and timing thing where he goes and he's expecting the football at a specific time. And once it doesn't get there, he just closed up the pocket for the football. He didn't make a pocket for the football to be put into. And Kirk stuck it in there, and he had already closed up shop. And so the ball hit the carpet, and the Seahawks recovered. And he only had one more snap in the game after that. One. And that happened in the first quarter. They weren't playing around. It was a wet, nasty day. They weren't taking any more chances with Samaje Perine. After that, he got one snap the remainder of the game. But before that fumble, he had an 8-yard carry. He looked confident. And yeah, I know it was only 2 carries. But it was 2 carries for 9 yards, one of which was an 8-yard carry. He looked explosive. He looked ready. And his best game in college came in a similar situation. Wet, nasty field, cold conditions in Norman. Ran for 428 yards versus Kansas. In similar conditions. I thought he was poised and primed for a big day. And then he fumbled. And then they said, we can't take any chances with him on the football field. I'm just telling you, don't be down on Samaje Perine. Don't be down on him. I think he's got a big ball game coming at some point. It wouldn't shock me if it came in the next couple of weeks. Maybe not Minnesota. But maybe New Orleans on the road. It wouldn't shock me if Samaje Perine went off on somebody late in the season. I thought he was impressive until he fumbled the football. And I know it was a small sample size. I get it. 6. Seattle took the screen game away. So I got up on the R3 and I ranted about play calling, and we're going to talk about that here on the 7-on-7. But when I went back and watched the game, because I watched it like 3 times over, and I never do that. I was just in awe of what happened, and I couldn't stop watching the game over and over again because it just amazed me that we won that game. So I went back and watched, and what I saw was the Redskins tried to run the screen game 3 or 4 times, and the Seahawks weren't having it. They just weren't having it. So they ran a screen to Chris Thompson at the beginning of the game, and Bobby Wagner blew it up. And on my side note, for the offensive side, this is my side note. Bobby Wagner is a beast. All right, when we talk middle linebackers in this league, does anybody ever bring up Bobby Wagner's name? You know, the first name is always Luke Kuechly and all these other guys out there that are at the middle linebacker position that are beasts. But I put Bobby Wagner against anybody. Anybody in the league, and that includes Luke Kuechly. Anybody at the middle linebacker position. That includes a guy that I am infatuated with, his game, in Pittsburgh, and Ryan Shazier. He's the new age linebacker. Ryan Shazier is. But Bobby Wagner, I don't think he's as fast, but he's not that far behind Ryan Shazier, and he's much bigger. Damn, Bobby Wagner's a beast. But anyway, enough of that. He and the rest of his compadres took away the screen game. He blew up the first screen to Chris Thompson. We tried to run another screen. They knocked Chris Thompson on the ground. Kirk had to ground it. We tried to run another screen, a screen and go. And Kirk was going to throw the screen, and they were all over it. So he had to throw it out of bounds down the field. Kirk tried to throw another screen. He took a sack. Like, we tried to run screens. They just weren't having it. They were not having the screen game. And I thought at first blush, man, we should have ran more screens. We tried. And I told you, they weren't blitzing. It's not like we were going to catch them on a blitz. They were just rushing 4 and kicking ass with just 4. So we tried to run the screen game. They just weren't having it. 5. Rob Kelly's tough touchdown runs. Those 2 1-yard touchdown runs were things of beauty. Seattle was tough against our ground game all day long. We haven't been the best, rush offense team this season, but Rob Kelly's toughness around the goal line has been huge in us scoring touchdowns in the red zone this year. We lacked that toughness last year. I mean, we'd get down there last year and we couldn't punch it in from the 1. This year, Rob Kelly is doing whatever it takes, second, third efforts if necessary. He's getting in the end zone. And so it's been great for us because we need it. We got to have it, always need it. And that last touchdown, the back of my mind, I was like, man, it'd be nice if Rob Kelly could get stopped the first time and maybe run off, 40 seconds. Seahawks don't have any more timeouts. And then score on second down. But you couldn't take that risk. I was like, look, man, get it when you can. And so I'm like, hey, look, score right now. Score as fast as you can because, there was that thought of the Kansas City game, deja vu all over again. But also in the front of my mind, suppressing the thought that was in the back of my mind of not scoring on first down was, hey, how many times have we handed the ball off and our running back get blown up in the backfield for a 3-4 yard loss on a first down? He wasn't on the line of scrimmage. Ryan Anderson doesn't report as ineligible in the game because the first time he came in on the first touchdown, he didn't report. Rob Kelly had to grab him. Vernon Davis just had a holding penalty like 2 possessions ago. All it takes is for somebody to jump false start, somebody to hold, some kind of illegal procedure. Somebody wasn't on the line of scrimmage. Ryan Anderson doesn't report as ineligible in the game because the first time he came in on the first touchdown, he didn't report. Rob Kelly had to grab him, turn him to the official, and go like this. That's the sign to the official that this guy's coming in as ineligible because he didn't know he had to do that as a fullback. So it could have been something as stupid as that could have cost us 5 or 10 yards. And all of a sudden now what seemed like a gimme touchdown is all of a sudden now a task. So I was like, get it in there. And he got it in there on second effort on that last touchdown, and it was huge. Because, again, you just don't want to put yourself in a position where you don't get in. And so those touchdown runs, even though they were from a yard out, they were colossal in this football game. And those were tough yards that he had to go and get. 4. The wideouts showed up in this game. Wideouts haven't been our strong suit. As a matter of fact, we've had one of the worst wide receiving groups in the entire National Football League. When your running back is your leading receiver and rusher, you have a problem on your hands. And it's been a concern of ours. We've tried to downplay it, but it showed up in some games of late. Big time. The Philadelphia game comes to mind. The Dallas game comes to mind where, receivers just aren't showing up. And they were huge in this game. Brian Quick was huge. Terrell Pryor made some big catches. Had a catch on a third down on our lone scoring drive of the first half. That touchdown, that beautiful 13-play, 71-yard touchdown drive. He caught a pivotal third down curl over the middle of the field to extend that drive that led to the Rob Kelly 1-yard touchdown, his first of the 2 on the day. He had another catch where he was able to, on a bootleg, catch it, get up the field, and get 11 to get a first down. So even Terrell Pryor and his hands showed up in this game. Grizzy was huge. That play on that same 13-play, 71-yard drive where Kirk took one smack dab in the chops and delivered the football to Ryan Grant. I think that might have been the field goal drive in the second half. In any event, huge play by Grizzy to catch that football. That was not an easy catch. Again, a wet, nasty day. Ball way out in front of him. He fingertip catch that, then got yards after the catch. And then he had a huge third down grab in the fourth quarter when we were trying to bleed clock and nurse a 10-8 lead. He didn't know what to do with that football. You could tell. He caught it. He's like, oh, shit, I got the football, and I got the first down. And he's shuffling. I'm like, man, if you don't turn up the field, he went out of bounds. Why are you going out of bounds with 4:30 left on the clock? We're trying to eat clock, not save it. Kill the clock. You trying to save it. No, we trying to kill the clock. Cut up the field and get more yards. Not, oh, man, I got the first down. Shuffle, shuffle, out of bounds. He didn't know what the hell to do, but Grizzly was outstanding. The doc was in, man. I mean, what more can I say? The doc was in. We needed him. A huge catch on a comeback that Kirk admits he was throwing a prior and just airmailed it, and Doxson came back and caught it on the sidelines in front of Dick Sherman. That was a big play. But obviously, he had another catch up the sidelines on a bootleg where he was able to catch the football, get up the field, and get a first down. But obviously, the catch of the day was the 40-yarder down to the 1-yard line on a diving stab. I mean, arguably the biggest play of the game for the Redskins was that Doxson 40-yard connection with Cousins. Receiver stepped up, man. Kirk Cousins had 21 completions for 247 yards in this game. 11 of those completions went to receivers for 164 yards. Since when are our receivers accounting for that many catches and yards in a game? They just haven't done that this year. So that was refreshing to see. Wideout stepped up. And to one of the earlier comments that asked, should Quick get more touches and more snaps over Terrell Pryor? Brian Quick suffered a concussion. That hit that he took on that throw by Kirk where he turned over his shoulder and caught it, and then Cam Chancellor should have been flagged for 15 yards helmet-to-helmet contact. I know he was a runner at that point, but it was so vicious. He just deserved a 15-yard penalty for it. That helmet-to-helmet contact, which was so unnecessary, knocked him out of the game. He sustained a concussion. He's in the concussion protocol as we speak. He may not play in the Minnesota game. So hard to say if he's going to get more snaps or not because he may not be eligible to play. He's in the concussion protocol right now. But he was huge in this game. Number 3, VD and the O-line. So Vernon Davis was outstanding in this game, and he's been really big for us in games in which Jordan Reed doesn't play. And I've said all along that when Jordan Reed does play, he still needs to be a bigger part of the offense because when he gets his hands on the football, good things happen. And he was huge, especially on the first touchdown drive. That was the Vernon Davis drive. That was the VD drive. I mean, literally 4 completions on that drive went to Vernon Davis. And he was huge on that particular drive. And even on the catch late in the game, on the screen that we threw him out of the backfield that Seattle was ready for, but luckily enough for us, their defender tried to go for the kill shot instead of wrapping up, and Vernon just bounced off of him like a pinball and got up the field, and then dumb Tyler Catalina wants to block in the back 12 yards down the field to negate the beautiful catch and run to set up a 3rd and 2, instead 2nd and 12. Vernon Davis was huge in this game. Tremendous. And he left the game with a hand contusion, but they said they think he's going to be fine. And all a contusion means is it was a bruise. Hopefully he's going to be okay because we need him. We don't know if Jordan Reed's going to play with the hamstring. Got to have Vernon Davis. Be nice to get Niles Paul back, but we got to have Vernon Davis. And the O-line, they weren't good in this game. Make no mistake about it. But they competed. And the bigger issue was health. Well, they all stayed healthy for the most part. Catalina came off for something with his eye for like 2 snaps, and then he came back in the game. But they stayed healthy. We couldn't afford any more casualties up front. And Ari Kwanjo is playing some ball, man. Maybe that 5th-round draft pick that we spent on him out of Alabama may pay off. Now, it may have taken us to cut him in his 2nd stint with us, but Ari's been playing some ball, man. I like Ari. I want to see him get a shot. You go to number 2. Play calling wasn't the best. And I told you we were gonna get to it during the 7-on-7. And I told you that they did actually try to run the screens. But I didn't think they ran enough quick game. Enough short underneath passes to get the football out of Kirk's hands quickly, because the Seahawks did a really good job of taking away some of his early reads. But there should have been more early, quick, available reads to Kirk throughout the course of the game that would have allowed him to get rid of the football a lot faster, because there were too many longer developing routes that made him hold on to the football and allowed Seattle to get to him. And there were some quick pressures given up by this offensive line. And so we would have loved to have seen the ball come out a lot sooner with more quick game. And I thought we gave up on the run. And I wanted to see some diversity in the run game. I wanted to see some draws on first down. We only ran draws when it was 3rd and 23, 3rd and 16, when we were giving up. Like Chris Thompson had a great 11-yard run where he broke like 3 tackles, spun on another guy, and got 11. It would have been nice to have seen one of those draws on a first down. It doesn't have to be 3rd and long every time you run a draw. 2nd and 8 is a good drawdown, just like 1st and 10 is. I'd like to see us switch up the run game. I thought we were too predictable in the run. Seattle knew when we were going to run, and they blew up our run game. We needed to be a little bit more diverse, and I wanted to see us stick with the run game. I think over the last 3 weeks, Jay has been quitting on the run game a little bit too prematurely. You know, and I get it. Sometimes the run game isn't working, but it doesn't always mean abandon it. It just means try it in a different manner. And so I'd like to see him try some different things with the run game. Obviously, no Jamison Crowder, so that took the jet sweep out of the mix. But that was a little wrinkle that they put in to kind of keep defenses off balance. When he comes back, maybe that'll be back in the playbook. But I didn't think we ran enough tosses. I don't know if this is a fast-flowing Seattle Seahawks defense. We ran 1 toss to Chris Thompson. He got a yard. But, you know, it would have been nice to have seen him get more touches out on the perimeter. You know, see if we can't get some blockers in front of him, and maybe he'd be able to break one. But I just thought the play calling in this game wasn't conducive to the players that were available. Kirk was under siege the entire game with some quick pressures being given up. Either draws would help that. You know, running a draw would slow down the pass rush. And also, you know, quick game would have also gotten Kirk out of harm's way. He took a beating in this game, did Kirk Cousins. Ridiculous how many times he was hit. Vicious hits at that. Finally, speaking of Kirk Cousins is a freaking football player. A wise man once told me that. And I believe him. Because if you had the ability to watch the football game like I did, and I watched it several times, Kirk took a beating in this game. I mean, he really did. Do yourself a favor. Treat yourself to the sounds of the game on YouTube. Watch the Redskins YouTube channel. They do a sounds of the game every single week. And you get to hear some audio from the sidelines and on the field. A lot of it is just the broadcast of the game from the radio team. But when the Redskins play home games, they also mic up a few players, and you can actually hear audio on the sidelines. But you also get a close, in-depth look at the action on the field that you don't get on the game cameras. And it just gives you more perspective as to the beating Kirk Cousins took in this game. Yet he persevered and made plays. That throw to Brian Quick on the last drive, he got destroyed on that throw. Destroyed. That throw to Grizzy over the middle of the field, when they called a personal foul, roughing the passer, that was the hardest hit he took of the day. Right in his chops. Helmet came down. His helmet was on his face like this after he got hit. He had to readjust the helmet up because his helmet was down by his nose. He got destroyed on that play. When he left the game, he had a headache, he said. And I don't think it was from yelling because it was so loud. At the press conference after the game, he had diarrhea at the mouth for a second, and he realized he was saying too much because he said, yeah, I had a headache and I took some And then he stopped talking. And then he kind of retracted his statements and kind of cleaned it up because he was about to say, yeah, I took some shots. I ended up with a headache, which usually having a headache because you take some shots means you had a concussion. So he realized what road he was going down. He backtracked a little bit and said, okay, yeah, I need to shut the hell up. So he took a beating in this game, man. And for him to have the guts to stare down the gun barrel and deliver the football under duress the way that he was under duress in this game speaks volumes as to just how tough this guy is and how much of a gamer he is. I remember at one point we questioned, did he have this in his DNA? Did he have baller in him? Because ballers take shots in their face and still deliver the football. They don't cower. They don't ball up into the fetal position and take a sack. No, they stare down the gun barrel, knowing they're going to get hit, and deliver the football. He did that time and time again. No more so than that final drive of the game. That throw to Brian Quick, he knew he was about to take a shot, and he delivered it. And he could have took a shallow crosser over the middle of the field to Ryan Grant. If he didn't want to get hit, he could have took the shallow crosser. But that would have been a bitch move. That's what soft QBs do. Let me take the safe throw so I don't get hit. He said, no, I'm going for the gusto. I'm going for the jugular. I'm going for the win. That's what ballers do. You don't settle for less. You go for the best. Kirk did that on the final drive and knew he had to take a shot to deliver. Kirk Cousins is a freaking football player. A wise man once told me that. I believe him, and so should you. That's our offensive 7-on-7 for the day. Let's get to some comments, and then we'll move on quickly to the bow and go. See if I can pick up where we left off at. And so we were basically right here. All hail says Santa Walsh was out there handing out early Christmas gifts. He sure did. Put 3 of them under the tree with our names on it. And we took every single one of them, and we were gracious and grateful for every single one of those wrapped gifts he put under our tree, man. Salute to Blair Walsh and those early Christmas gifts he was handing out, man. We needed every single one of those bad boys. Mr. DCB215 says, I think D Hall was playing robber on that play. He may have been, but at the end of the day, he needed to be able to pick up anybody that came into that zone, into that area on that side of the field. He was able to be free initially because there was no action on his side of the field. So initially, he could be nosy and see if he could pick something off or be a nuisance on the play. But once Baldwin crossed into his area of the field, that became his responsibility at that point. And he didn't realize it until it was too late. John Perez says, who's the most important player the Vikings defensively have that we have to watch out for? Harrison Smith, Xavier Rhodes, Everson Griffin. It depends on how healthy we are. It changes with the amount of health. If you tell me Trent Williams and Brandon Sheriff are playing, then Everson Griffin isn't the most dangerous man. He's not the, what do they call it? MDM. He's not the MDM. That would probably then become one of the linebackers. Eric Kendricks or Anthony Barr, they love to blitz, both of those guys. They love the double A-gap blitz. And if you don't have a healthy Sheriff or you don't have a healthy, can't even think of our damn center's name right now. But if you don't have communication up the interior of our offensive line, those double A-gap blitzes become very worrisome. So it changes with Spencer Long is our center. It changes with who's available. If you tell me that TJ Clemmings is at left tackle again, Everson Griffin becomes the MDM at that point. Because we saw what Dwight Freeney did to him. I can't even begin to imagine what Everson Griffin is going to do to him. And remember, TJ Clemmings was in Minnesota. They know all too well what this guy's about. They know that he's garbage. So if he has to start at left tackle, we're in trouble. Extreme Archery USA says Josh Doxson is the truth, and he is healthy. And from all the injuries, I see great depth from us. I think that's the one thing that we've gotten. That's the one good thing that's come of all of these injuries is the fact that we've seen depth spring out of all of these injuries. Now, you don't ever want to see your depth tested this way, because if it is, that means you've sustained and incurred way too many injuries to have any kind of season. But if we do get guys back, the one thing I can say about our injuries that we've sustained this season is most of them haven't been season-ending injuries. You know, sans for Trent Murphy, Jonathan Allen, and Mason Foster, we've basically been able to stay clear of the season-ending injuries. We got a lot of guys with nicks and bruises that's going to continue to see them miss time. But at some point, if we're hanging around this wild card race, these guys are going to come back. And so if we can just find a way to tread water while we wait for the troops to arrive, we'll be a better football team because of it. We'll know that if these guys go down again, the depth behind them will be able to sustain us moving forward. And that's a good feeling to have. This is why you draft players. This is why you have your personnel staff sign undrafted players. This is why you put together this type of roster, so that when guys go down, it's the next man up and the drop-off isn't as steep. But that being said, there's nothing like having your starters. They're starters for a reason, and backups are backups for a reason. So I do agree with you to an extent that with these injuries have shown the depth on this football team. So Leah Jones says, who do you think might come back from injury this week? Hard to say. We'll find out more on Wednesday when they have their first day of practice for the week. I'm hoping Ty Nsekhe comes back. That's going to be because I don't expect Trent Williams to come back, if at all this season. If he does, it'll be another 2 or 3 weeks down the road. But if we can get Ty Nsekhe back, that's huge, because he's a massive upgrade from TJ Clemmings. I mean, massive upgrade. That's the biggest one that I'm staring at this week. You know, it'd be great to get Sheriff back, and I think he's going to be back. If you ask me the one guy that I fully expect to be back this week, I'd tell you it was Brandon Sheriff, because he was extremely close to playing in that game. And another week off with more treatment, I think he'll be that much closer to getting back to the football field. But the biggest guy that we need back this week is Ty Nsekhe for this offensive line, because I'm cool with Ari Kwanjo at left guard. All right, I'm cool with Ari Kwanjo. If Chase Roulier has to go at center again, I'm fine with that. You know, he's had some questionable snaps the last couple of weeks. I do need him to clean that up. But all things aside, he's been all right at center. So I'll be okay if he has to go at center. But we need Sheriff back. Momo gutted it out. And so hopefully Momo's going to be able to go again. And if we can get Nsekhe, we'll be fine up front. If we can get Sheriff and Nsekhe back on that offensive line, that'll help really clean up a lot of the problems that we had up front. But, I mean, Jamison Crowder may be able to play this week. Jordan Reed is a guy. They both are listed as day-to-day, but what does that really mean? You're talking about a hamstring, so that's always tricky for guys that need their hamstring. So I don't know who we're getting back, but for me, the offensive line are the biggest guys that we need back. So I'm looking at Ty Nsekhe and Sheriff like, are y'all ready? Y'all good? Because those are the guys we really need back. Melvin Gloson says, man, we're facing a couple of beasts this Sunday, and Stephon Diggs and that running back that they have, for some reason, I can't think of his name. You're talking about the secret weapon known as Jerick McKinnon. Yeah, they got some problems over there on that side of the field. They got some problems. And don't forget about Adam Thielen. He may be a bigger problem than Stephon Diggs when it's all said and done. So, and you know, we stay with tight end problems. They got a good one over there too. So, and Kyle Rudolph. So they got a ton of weapons. We got our work cut out for us on Sunday. Extreme Archery USA says, and remember, we get Cravens back next year for the safety position. Cravens or McNasty. Okay, it's not McNasty. It's Nick Nasty. And it's Nick Nasty all day, because I know he wants to play the game of football. And he's a better athlete than Sua Cravens. I'm not even thinking about Sua Cravens, to be honest with you. After he left the team this year, and again, I can't confirm nor deny why he left the team. He had his reasons. And, if those reasons stay private, that is fine by me. But I just want guys that want to play. And this wasn't his first time quitting football. He quit in college too. So I don't know if it was something really personal that affected him, that he just needed time for, whatever. Nick Nasty, I know, is physical, fast, ball skills, and he loves the game of football. He wants to play. So give me Nick Nasty every day of the week. Levi Naaman says, I hate to be the one to say it, but is it time to start thinking about life without Jordan Reed? He's expensive. He's never out there, and we need to sign Cousins, Brown, and others. Well, we just signed Jay Reed to an extension. He's still a dynamic football player when he's healthy. How often is that? I know that's a big issue with a lot of people, but you can't. There's no way you get rid of Jordan Reed. I mean, he's under contract. You've already got that contract built into your salary cap, so you know what you're spending there. It's not like we got a decision to make on Jordan Reed at the end of the season. He's in the first year of a 5-year deal. He's not going anywhere. I'm not concerned with Jordan Reed. We all go into the season knowing he's not playing 16 games. Last year, he played 14 games. That was great. I would have took 14. Sign me up. This year, he's dealing with a myriad of injuries. He can't stay healthy. It is what it is. But when he does get healthy, he's a problem. Defenses have to focus in on him. I'm not one to kill Jordan Reed, and he's not going to stop us from re-signing Kirk or Zach Brown for that matter. We've got enough money to go around. All right? We've got enough money to re-sign both of those guys. Terrell Pryor's not going to be back. Okay? So we're not going to have to spend money. We thought we were going to have to spend money on him potentially. We're not going to have to spend money on Terrell Pryor. So we'll have plenty of money. Jordan Reed is not a problem. His cap number is not egregious to the point where, we can't make moves elsewhere. We're fine. He's fine. Cole Hunt says, what's the deal with Teddy Bridgewater? As far as I know, as of right now, he's been activated. And they're going to potentially put Sam Bradford on IR because Bridgewater has been activated. That being said, they don't expect him to play this week. They're still going to go with Case Keenum this week. As far as I know. I'm hearing that Bridgewater is about a week or two away from starting again. But in terms of this week, right now, it's Case Keenum. That could change. Because this would be the perfect week to start Bridgewater if he's healthy enough. This would be the perfect week to start him because you're coming off of a bye. That means he's had 2 weeks to prepare, get the practice reps that he needs, get back into the swing of things. So it would not shock me as if later in the week, we've heard all week, Case Keenum, Case Keenum, Case Keenum, and then voila, game day, it's Teddy Bridgewater. So right now, the assumption is Case Keenum, but it wouldn't shock me as if we get to Sunday and it's Teddy Bridgewater. SW Mike says, if this win doesn't motivate the fellas, I don't know what will. Boba says, Samaje Perine equals second coming of Matt Jones. Ouch. Don't do my man like that. The one thing I can say about Samaje Perine is he's not soft. Matt Jones was a tiptoe burglar, okay? Wanted no part of being physical. Wanted to run around guys, jump over guys before he runs somebody over. Samaje Perine is all about that action. He's all about using his physicality. That being said, I'd like to see him be a little bit more nimble-footed and make guys miss because I think he's capable of doing that. But he's a big, physical, burly back. He's not a guy that's a scat back, and he's not a home run hitter. And so I think there's potential in Samaje Perine. I'm not willing to write him off as a second coming of Matt Jones. That was pretty savage of you, Bo. Levi Naaman says, can we draft a top running back next time around? We had to go defense this draft. It was the right move. Again, now I didn't have a problem with our first pick being a defensive player. It was the second one, the drafting of the outside linebacker out of Alabama, that I had a problem with. That was the one that really kind of stuck in my craw because he's not a difference maker to me. You know, he's a similar pass rusher to the ones we already have. He's physical at the point of attack in the run game, you know, but he's not dynamic as an edge rusher. You know, Ryan Anderson doesn't bring any kind of explosiveness whatsoever. He's not dynamic in any sense of the word. And so I would have much rather traded him off for Alvin Kamara or Marlon Mack, both of which who were available at the time of our second round pick. So that's why I was a little frustrated. But maybe we can get it back this year. We'll see what happens. Rodney Ray says, I'll take P. Ryan on kick returns, then Crowder any day. Well, Crowder wasn't on kickoffs. They got P. Ryan on kickoffs. I like him on kickoffs, by the way, as long as he doesn't fumble. I like him on kickoffs because he's going to run straight ahead and get what's there. He's not going to dance around. I didn't like the idea of vitamin B being back there. And I don't want Chris Thompson taking those anymore either because I don't want any more wear and tear on him. We use him enough on offense as it is. He doesn't need to be taking shots on kickoff. So I like Samaje back there. Gives him another role. But we'll see what happens with Crowder when he comes back because I think he'll be back there on punts. Again. HTTR Chris 27 says, I wonder if we'll see a healthy dose of Matt Brown now that he's on Minnesota because it would be in typical Redskins fashion for him to have a big day on us. I'd be surprised if he even sees the field, okay? They've got 2 running backs ahead of him on the depth chart. I don't expect Matt Brown to see the field, but if they have some injuries and he is active, he can't know but so much of the playbook. He's only been there a couple of weeks, so I don't think this is a case of a guy coming back to haunt us, but it would be some story if Matt Brown got us on Sunday. Redskins fans would absolutely hate that, but in any event. Amic89 says, is Bobby better than Zach Brown? Who the hell is Bobby? I don't know who you're talking about. You got to explain yourself there. SW Mike says, remember the play when the ball went straight up in the air and Kirk was like, here you go, Robert Kelly. You get sacked. Yeah, I saw a great tweet that summed that up. And it said, Kirk sacrificed Rob Kelly to the gods, to the Seahawks, essentially. And that's exactly what it was. It's like, oh, I got the snap. I've already been hit and sacked like 6 times. Here, you take it. It was a savage play on the part of Kirk Cousins, but I wasn't mad at him. He was like, yo, bro, you only got like 7 carries in the game. You got to take this one for the team, man. I ain't taking another hit unnecessarily. That was pretty funny. Levi Naaman says, Dick Sherman, is he losing a step? Didn't hear or see shit out of him during the game. Guess that could be a good thing. Well, he dropped a pick in the game. So, and he had a pass interference on Terrell Pryor in the end zone that helped set up our first touchdown. So they called his name a couple of times. We didn't go at him a ton. There was no reason to. But Doc caught one on him on a comeback. Kirk took a shot down the field that he should have picked off, that Dick Sherman should have picked off. Hit him right in his hands. He dropped it. And then Terrell Pryor had a slant on him in the end zone that they called him for PI, which was a good call in the end zone. So I heard Dick Sherman's name called a couple of times in the game. Jolt Warrior says, or SW Mike says, when Kirk fumbled the ball into the end zone and it was called back because his knee was down, really saved us out there. Yeah, it did. I was upset at Kirk because I always stress to him, you got to protect the ball. And I don't think he does a good enough job of when he getting hit. We're among the leaders in fumbles this season. We've put the football on the carpet a ton, whether it's been P. Ryan or it's been Cousins. Chris Thompson had a fumble against Dallas. We fumbled the football way too many times this year. So we got to be better. We got to protect the rock. We're not doing a good enough job of protecting the rock. And Cousins is leading the charge with the fumbles this year. He's got to do a better job, but he was definitely down, and I'm glad he was down because had the game at that moment was slipping away from us because if you recall what point of the game that was, the Seahawks had just scored their first touchdown in the game. They had just cut it to 10-8. The crowd was in the game. They were raucous. It was the loudest it was all game long. And when he fumbled there, and it was a touchdown, the crowd was at a crescendo. You couldn't even hear the commentators. You could barely hear the commentators. It was deafening there at that point, and it would have given them the lead, and they would have had all the momentum, and we would have lost the game at that point. So that was a huge overturn there, and he was definitely down, no doubt. Joke Warrior says, I'm glad Doxson is finally getting opportunities. I have a feeling we will be seeing more production from him in the coming weeks. The guy's talented. There's no doubt about that. He's very talented. And the only way he's going to have more catches is if he gets more opportunities. And I think Kirk is starting to build a rapport with him, gain trust in him. And the more Kirk trusts him, the more opportunities he's going to get. SW Mike says, why is Jay Gruden why did he call a timeout in the last few seconds of the game? I can see that hurting our chances of winning a game in the future. Well, I didn't have a problem with him calling a timeout there because what he wanted to do was set up his defense. They were going to get a snap off, okay? They were going to get a snap, whether they downed the football, because there was 4 seconds left on the clock. So whether they downed it to give them another chance to set up their Hail Mary, or they just come out and they were going to snap it and already be ready and set when the clock was going to be ran, they were going to get a play off anyway. So his thinking was, hey, let me get a timeout. Let's talk about what we want to do. Let's set our defense. Let's get everybody out on the field that we want to get out on the field so that no mistakes are made. If you watch the Dallas-Kansas City game, they gave up a touchdown right before the half because there was no communication. You just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I didn't have a problem with him calling a timeout there. Amic89 says, so you saying Kirk had a concussion and the team hit it, a.k.a. RG3? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying Kirk sounded like he was starting to talk as if he had a little something because he was talking and then he said, I got a headache. But Kirk had a lot going on. Kirk's got a cold. He said he lost his voice. He had a headache. Did the headache come from yelling and screaming because it was so loud? Him having to call out the snap to everybody to call out. He said they could barely hear each other in the huddle. So he was having to yell just to get the play call to everybody in the huddle. So his headache could have come from yelling. I know when I go out and I go have fun with my friends, I talk a lot, especially when we're doing something competitive. I'm the loudest one. I talk trash, and I don't get headaches, but my head starts to throb a little bit because I'm talking too much and I'm talking too loud. So then I have to calm down a little bit and then it'll go away. So that may be what he was suffering from. But it sounded as if he was saying, I got a headache, I took some, and then he kind of backtracked a little bit and then moved away from that like he was saying, yeah, I might have took a shot or two and it rung my bell a little bit, but he realized I can't be talking crazy like that. So I wouldn't go that far to say it's a cover up or anything like that, but he got rocked, man. He got rocked. So it wouldn't shock me if he did have one. Tom Brady had a concussion last year. His wife told everybody he had a concussion. Tom said, I ain't had no damn concussion. Don't listen to her. Yeah, he had a concussion. She's not lying. But quarterbacks don't want you to know that. FBG Tony says, how healthy will our offensive line be in Week 10? That's the biggest question right now. You know, we don't know the answers to that. We'll find out tomorrow who practiced, you know, and as we go further into the week, who practiced, partial practice, full practice, whatever the case may be. We'll really start to find out who's going to be able to go for us in the upcoming game. Matthew123 says, do you think Kirk is learning from not having a healthy O-line and learning to deal with pressure and make better throws without having great protection? This is certainly testing him, his moxie as a quarterback. I think this is making him a tougher quarterback. This is allowing him to stand in the pocket, stand tall, and be tougher in the pocket. But no quarterback wants to take the type of beating that he took in that game or against Dallas. So this isn't something that he wants to continue to do, but I think it is making him a better quarterback. Extreme Archery USA says, what do you think about Ryan Anderson? I mean, he hasn't done much. I haven't been a Ryan Anderson fan. I'm not a Ryan Anderson fan. I didn't like the drafting of him. You guys know that. If you saw my draft videos, I was not a fan of the draft pick then. I'm not a draft pick fan. I'm not a fan of the draft pick now, but it is what it is. He's on the team. I'm going to support him. I wish him nothing but the best. I want to see him develop. But I haven't seen much of anything from Ryan Anderson. I mean, the biggest contribution, he did get some pressure though. I will say he did get pressure on Russell Wilson on Sunday. So, but the offensive line of the Seahawks is trash. Like, I don't want you guys to think that that's going to be the norm moving forward. We got pressure because they stink up front. Kari Lynn says, I feel like I'm the only one liking Rob Kelly. He's a beast behind a really poor O-line. He's okay. He's okay. I like Rob Kelly too. He's okay, but he's not a difference maker. Melvin Glossen says, hell no, we ain't letting go of Jay Reed. Can you imagine him as an Eagle, Cowboy, or Giant, or either one of those teams would love to have him? Exactly. I mean, life without Jay Reed would be miserable. And I know you're saying, well, it's already that way, but at least he's with us. Imagine him going somewhere else and being healthy and coming back to bite us in the ass. I couldn't. And you know, a team in the division like the Eagles or the Cowboys or the Giants would scoop him up in a heartbeat. All right, let's get to the bow and go. Redskins bow and go. So let's quickly put a bow on the win versus Seattle. It was an improbable win. It was a win that us as Redskins fans, we didn't see it coming. I mean, I don't think any of us gave our team a chance to win that game. And it was one of the most gratifying regular season wins in recent memory. And it was a win that saved our season, albeit maybe temporarily. I don't know. I mean, we could still spiral out of control. This thing is not, we're not out of the woods yet. But this win bought us 2 weeks. We lose that game, and we're done. At 3-5, we're probably done. The confidence of this team would have been in the toilet. You're coming home to face a tough Minnesota Vikings football team. It's not looking good at 3-5. But instead, you win. You go to 4-4, and now you're right back in the thick of things in the NFC wild card, and your season has been restored. You know, we were on life support. Now we're breathing on our own. And so that was a big win. So proud of the fellas, just like you guys are. But now we got to move on. And this game is just as tough and just as unlikely a Redskins win as the Seattle game was. A lot less daunting of a task because we're home, and you know, Minnesota doesn't necessarily scare you with what they bring to the table, but they're a damn good football team. They didn't get 6 wins by accident. But I can tell you this. They're 6-2, and the 2 good teams that they've played this season, they've lost. They lost. Now, one game, granted, they lose their running back, Dalvin Cook, and so they lose to the Detroit Lions at home. That's family business, though. We stay out of that. That's not our business. That's their business. However, they played Pittsburgh. They lost to that Steelers team as well. So all I'm saying is, here we are with an opportunity at home versus a really good Vikings team coming off of a bye. They pose a ton of different challenges and threats to us, the likes of which we haven't faced this season. So what I'm saying to you is, pack away the Week 9 win. It was great. We celebrated. It was fun. Put a bow on that. It's time to go to Minnesota Vikings in Week 10. And you guys had some great comments earlier, so I want to knock down a couple of those first. And I know someone asked about who's the biggest threat. And I told you it's going to vary between, you know, he said defensively, who poses the biggest threat to the Redskins? Right now, the MDM, the most dangerous man, is Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter. Both of those guys are pass rushers on the edges for them. Now, if we have Ty and Seki back, then I think we'll be fine at the tackle position, and those guys no longer are your MDMs. Then, to me, the focus shifts to the inside linebackers and the linebackers of the Vikings in Barr and Kendricks because they're athletic, they can run, and they love to blitz those guys up the A-gaps, and they love to bluff those guys. And if you think they're coming and you adjust protections and then they drop out, now they're athletic enough to get into some deeper drops, make a play on the football. So those guys, to me, become the MDM at that point. So that's who I think the most dangerous threat is to the Redskins defensively. It's going to vary, though, depending on health of the football team, mainly the offensive line. Someone else asked about how do we cover Diggs and Thielen and company. There is no blueprint. I love the matchup with those receivers because I think our corners can cover their receivers. You know, where I'm nervous is at the tight end position with a really good tight end that I think can hurt us in Kyle Rudolph because we don't do well against good tight ends. We struggle covering the tight end. It's just been a fact for us. Can we stop the run effectively? They're going to run the football. Especially if, it doesn't matter if Case Keenum or Teddy Bridgewater, they're going to run the football. And if Teddy's plays, they're probably going to run it even more so. Just because he hasn't played all year and hasn't played in over a year. So we're going to get a steady diet of the run game. We got to stop the run. Case Keenum is a guy that has played well for them this season. He's a backup quarterback, though. We have to take away the run game and make Case Keenum beat us. If he beats us, then we deserve to lose. But we got to take the run away. We cannot allow them to be balanced. We definitely can't allow them to heavily rely on the run game. If they're able to run the football effectively, we're going to lose. We're going to lose because that's what they rely on offensively. They rely on a steady run game, which allows them to go play action fake and take shots down the field and get chunk plays. And if they're running it effectively, play action fake works. So, got the first priority defensively, stop the run. Make them one-dimensional, and then see if we can't take advantage of Case Keenum and maybe force him into a mistake or two. Offensively, the health of the offensive line would be great. It'd be nice to get back 2 of the 4 missing offensive linemen. I don't have a problem with Ari Kwanjo playing at left guard. I don't. As a matter of fact, when Sean Laval's healthy, I wouldn't mind Ari Kwanjo staying there. We've been trying to get Sean Laval out of there for God knows how long. We might have found a guy that could actually stay there. But if they want to put Laval back in, I'm fine with that. Tyler Catalina is the one I really want out of the lineup. He was getting his ass whooped versus the Seahawks. Quick, instant pressure all day long. Damn it, man. He was getting his ass whooped repeatedly, over and over again. So if we can get Sheriff back, keep Kwanjo on the field, and get Nsekhe back, man, I feel like we would be able to do some damage offensively. And if we can get Spencer Long back, all the better. But I don't expect Spencer Long or Trent Williams back in this game. So if we can get Nsekhe and Sheriff back, huge boost to the offensive line. And then I think we can get Niles Paul back from his concussion. I think we might be able to get Jamison Crowder back from his hamstring. We may even be able to get Jordan Reed back. I don't know if Jay Reed's going to be back or not. I don't know if Crowder's going to be back. It'd be nice to have Brian Quick out there, but after the hit he sustained, it wouldn't shock me if he didn't play this week either. So we'd really be hurting at the skill positions if Quick and Crowder can't go. So we'll see what happens. But offensively, the game plan remains the same. Want to establish a run game early. And I think we have to get Chris Thompson. And we've seen this over the last couple of weeks. Chris Thompson have a down game, don't have as many touches. I expect a big game from him this week at home. Get him back involved, run the football. I think Jay Gruden is going to make more of a concerted effort to run the football this week. We need to. And so I'm expecting a heavier dose of the run game And I'm hoping that that run game opens up some shots down the field. And now with the newfound confidence in Josh Doctson, maybe we take a shot or two to him down the field. Maybe that opens up the middle of the field for Vernon Davis to catch a seam ball and make them pay like he's been doing over the last month or so. This is going to be a tough game, man. We're still banged up. We're still really banged up, and we still don't know who's going to play. And the Vikings are coming off of a bye. That's a good football team. Like someone said earlier, they're well coached. They're very disciplined. We can't beat ourselves. We can't turn it over. We can't have a ton of penalties. I thought we did a really good job the last couple of weeks in the penalty department. We haven't had a ton of penalties the last couple of weeks. It needs to stay that way. But we got to take care of the football. We can't have the turnovers. We had a turnover last week. We had a couple of turnovers against Philadelphia 2 weeks ago. We can't have the turnovers. We got to stay clean if we want to beat, because the Vikings aren't going to beat themselves. They're not going to have a ton of penalties. They're not going to turn it over. They're a well-coached, very disciplined team. Mike Zimmer runs a tight ship over there. We beat them last year. It's going to be a similar type of ball game. Close, down to the wire, and we're going to have to make plays, and that's going to be the difference. Who makes the most plays? We can win this game. We're at home. We've got an abundance of confidence coming off the big win, but confidence don't mean squat if you don't go out and get it done. You only gain more confidence by winning. It's only so far confidence can take you in the game. At some point, you got to make plays. And this Vikings team, they got some playmakers on their side of the football, both sides of the football, as a matter of fact. And if we don't make plays, they're going to get us. So that takes me to the final outcome of the game, and then we'll get out of here. The win against Seattle restored a little bit of hope for me with this season. But I'm not going overboard with it. You know, I'm a cautious optimist. It's always been my MO. That's always been my thing. I'm a very cautious guy. I'm very optimistic, but to a point. I look at this football team, and I look at that win, and the key for me is defense. I don't know what we're going to get out of our offense. I'd like to think that we'll be a lot better this week at home, better weather conditions. We've played in some brutal weather conditions the last 2 weeks. We should get better weather. We're at home. We should be healthier, a week healthier, I would like to think. I think that all bodes well for this offense performing better. But the key to beating the Minnesota Vikings is going to be the defense. Can we do what we did last week? Can we duplicate that? Can we do it again? Got to stop the run. Got to make the Vikings one-dimensional. We got to apply pressure to Case Keenum. He can't have all day to throw. They've got weapons. They've got weapons on that team. They've got a second-year young receiver, just like we do, that's coming into his own, in Laquan Treadwell, that they're starting to get the football to. They love Adam Thielen. He's one of the most consistent receivers in the league. One of the most explosive and dynamic receivers in the league is right next to him, and Stephon Diggs, who I wanted the Redskins to draft over Jamison Crowder, but that's nor here nor there. They've got weapons. Kyle Rudolph at the tight end position. The secret weapon, Jerick McKinnon, can hurt you not only on the ground, but in the air through the screen game and through the passing game. They've got weapons galore. They're going to run the football with McKinnon. They're also going to run it with Latavius Murray. We got to be prepared. They got a ton of weapons on that side of the football. And then you look at the defense. They've got Griffin. They've got Daniil Hunter. They've got Barr. They've got Kendricks. They've got Xavier Rhodes. They've got Harrison Smith. They've got guys on both sides of the football that are playmakers. And so it's not going to be an easy game for the Redskins. And although I loved the win last week, I'm still not sold that we've turned a corner or anything like that. We're still missing a ton of players. So with that said, you thought I was going to say we were going to lose, didn't you? I think we can beat the Vikings. I think the bye week is overrated. I've seen more teams come off the bye and lose this season than I have in past years. And I think if we can get, and the key is going to be defense. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The key is going to be defense in this game. We have to give the same defensive effort that we gave against Seattle, against Oakland, first quarter versus Kansas City. We do that, we can beat anybody in this league. And the Vikings, they don't scare me on offense. They've got some good players that can hurt you if you're not careful. But I'm not afraid of the Minnesota Vikings, especially with Case Keenum at quarterback. You stop the run, and I think we got a shot. I love our secondary. I love our corners. I think we can get pressure. If we can get pressure on Case Keenum, I think we got a chance to win this game, and I think we can get it done at home 24-20. So we'll see what happens. But in any event, I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Redskins. Thank you guys for joining me tonight on the program. This is a big game. Think about this. And I'm going to leave you with this thought. If we're going to make the playoffs, it's going to be via wild card. Okay? In order to make it via the wild card, I told you, I think it's going to take 10 wins potentially in the NFC. It's a tough conference this year. Really tough conference. A lot of teams playing good football in the NFC. But I look around, and just about every team that's going to be in the mix, we're going to play them this year. We've already played the Rams. I don't think they're going to win that division. I still think Seattle's going to win that division. And if they do, then we're head-to-head against the Rams. Well, we beat them already. Minnesota, they may win the NFC North, but they may not. Detroit, don't count them out. Let's say Detroit comes back and wins that division. Then Minnesota, we're head-to-head with them for a wild card. Well, we got a chance to beat them. New Orleans, they're in a really tough division in the NFC South. Carolina's right there breathing on their necks. If they were to slip up, not win that division, and they're looking to get in via wild card, then we're head-to-head with the Saints. We got them next week. I don't think Arizona's going to be around when it's all said and done, but we got them later on in the season. We've got a chance to control our own destiny against other teams in the NFC by simply beating the teams that we'll be competing for a wild card spot. It starts this week. We got to win over Seattle. If Seattle doesn't win the NFC West, we got to win head-to-head over Seattle. We're doing all of our own dirty work. I wouldn't have it any other way. Don't get to the end of the season and need this scenario or that scenario to play out so you can get in. Do it yourself. We got a chance to do it again on Sunday. Do it yourself. You want to make it to the playoffs? DIY. Do it yourself. Beat Minnesota. So at the end of the season, we finish with a tied record with the Minnesota Vikings. Got you head-to-head. Get out my way. Seattle. Oh, you want to finish with a tied record with us? Beat you head-to-head. Get out my way. Rams. You want to finish with the same record as us? You want a wild card? Get out our way. We got the tiebreaker. Do it yourself. We got a chance to do it ourselves on Sunday. We got a chance to do it ourselves the week after. But we got to do it first on Sunday at home. Protect the house. Protect what's ours. Stop letting teams come into FedEx and think it's okay to leave with a dub. It's not okay. Protect the house. So I leave you with that. Appreciate y'all joining me on the program. And as always, you know the routine, fellas. We at home. Protect the house. Go get them, fellas. Keep the dub where it belongs. At home. I'll see y'all later on. Have a good one.